There are no abominable snowmen. There are no Sasquatches. There are no big feet. Am I missing something?
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Helmet Sunday Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Today, we are going to be talking about the Spearfish Sasquatch. This is such a fun team. It's such a fun team name, a fun brand. Great ice cream helmets. We'll talk a little bit about the ice cream helmets that the Sasquatch do. Later on in this episode, I'll be joined by Jeremiah Byron of the Bigfoot Society podcast. We'll be talking about the use of cryptids and cryptozoology, and specifically Bigfoot and Sasquatch in minor league baseball. And also, we'll be debuting a new segment on this podcast in which designer Dan Simon will bring a trivia question relevant to the subject matter at hand for each episode. So at the end of every episode, we're going to have Dan Simon asking me a trivia question. We'll debut what we're calling Studio Simon Stumpers at the end of this episode. I'm very happy to be joined right now by Eric Schmidt, who is the owner and general manager of the Spearfish Sasquatch. Eric, how are you doing? Thanks for being here.
Good. Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm excited.
Well, me too, because this is a brand that I really enjoyed following, and is certainly a fun one to talk about. I'll ask this question. You have teams like I don't know. You had the Savannah Sand Gnats. The Harrisburg Senators did they did an alternate logo. They did a hat for like the mayflies that swarm around, and so like these sort of nuisances that exist in their communities. Can I assume that Sasquatch are kind of a nuisance in Spearfish, South Dakota, and that's how come you guys named your team that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely you could say in the summer when the team's here. But no, honestly, it's not one of the local lores in the Black Hills here. It's just kind of a wooded area with, a little bit of mountains. And it's just kind of one of those alliteration things that came together and sounded good, looked cool, and we knew it was marketable.
Well, that circumvents my question. I was going to say, I know that Spearfish has a population of about 12,000. I was going to ask how many of those 12,000 were Sasquatch, but it sounds like maybe none. I don't know, but we can't confirm one way or the other, I guess.
Yeah, there are definitely some guys walking around that kind of would fit that that look, I think.
Undercover Sasquatch. Now we've got an alternate team name idea, the Undercover Sasquatch. So can you tell me, I mean, you sort of explained the reasoning behind it there, but can you tell me what the process was in coming up with this nickname for a baseball team?
Yeah, well, I can't take any credit for it, actually. There was a couple out of Rapid City, South Dakota, that started this team. And they were brainstorming on a drive home from Denver, actually, and kind of just, this was the one that stuck on what to name their team. And I think it's brilliant. I was thrilled when they announced the team here in Spearfish. As a Spearfish local, I was very excited about it. And then they hired me as their GM fairly quickly in the process. But the team name was already selected. And then, when they decided to step away and we took it over and bought the team, there's not a team name I'd rather have. I would never dream of changing this.
So you say you're a local there. When they announced the team, the team was originally in the Expedition League from 2018 to 2021, and then switched over to the new Independence League, along with a handful of other teams from that league. When the team debuted in 2018, when the announcement was made in 2017, I guess that in October of 2017 that they were going to be the Sasquatch, what was the reaction in the local community?
Well, I think everybody is trying to figure out what it was, because in Spearfish, we've never had anything at this level. So it was a huge education process. If you weren't a baseball fan, if you were a baseball fan, you could quickly grab hold of the concept. So I knew it was happening, but a lot of people in Spearfish, it truly was an education process on explaining exactly what level we are, what we're going to bring day in and day out, and that kind of thing.
One of the things that's interesting to me, and maybe it's because at the time of this recording, it's like minus 11 degrees outside here in Colorado, and it's not that far. I think it's about a 6-hour drive from where I am in Fort Collins to where you are in Spearfish up there in the Black Hills. the color palette of the logo is very cool, right? Like it's black and it's like this cyan blue and sort of a cool gray. There's warm grays and cool grays. This is definitely a cool gray. What was the thinking in not having any, and to get sort of nerdy about color theory, right? Like warm colors advance, cool colors recede. And so the warm colors really pop out at you and the cool colors are meant to sort of recede a little bit. But this logo, because it's a pretty bold design and the Sasquatch face is really aggressive and it's big, bold type. Like what was the thinking, do you think, and how are you using it, currently the sort of cool colors and this sort of cool, blue, black brand that you have?
Yeah, I think it's kind of opposite of what a Sasquatch would be, right? Hiding
Mm-hmm.
in the background. We really wanted to push things out to the forefront and really highlight the logo, the name, and not let it be in the background, because we really feel this is such a marketable thing. The Sasquatch name, Bigfoot, it's super viral right now, and
Mm-hmm.
it has been for a few years. And because of that, we know we could ship and sell hats and t-shirts and stickers all across the country, regardless of whether they know we're a baseball team or not. They just love the name, love the logos, and they want the hat.
And so it's a collegiate summer level team. Does having a sort of cool, fun logo like this help you attract players? Like, is that part of the decision making process for them?
That's a good question. I'll have to kind of do a straw poll with that. I'm not sure. I think it doesn't hurt, right? I think having a cool name and cool jerseys and stuff like that, like guys want to wear that kind of thing rather than something that they feel is dull and boring or just not a cool name. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, they're here to get better. They're here to, you know, grow as a player and a person and go back to school stronger than they were in the beginning of the summer when they got here.
The logo set itself, you have some really fun, fun logos here. There's obviously the full logo, the full primary logo has a baseball bat. It's got the screaming Sasquatch head, or growling, or
Yeah.
he's got his mouth open, got his fangs bared. But then there's a couple of alternate brands. You've got one where you've got the sort of, it's just the fingers with the claws on the end tearing up a baseball. And then you've got the crossed bats with the literal footprint. And then you're coming up on your 5th season. And so there's a 5 seasons logo. And also, this is one I haven't seen before. The one that you're actually wearing on your cap right now, which is, it looks like a sort of, it's emulating the Major League Baseball logo, but it's got a Sasquatch instead of the Major League Baseball player within the logo. So that's a fun one. Is that new, or has that been around?
Yeah. Both the 5 seasons logo and the one on my ball cap, are new to this year. We just developed those this off season.
Okay. Breaking news here on the Baseball by Design podcast. That's fun. And this is all to say that there's a lot of effort with all, with various versions of the brand, with, the merchandise that you're producing. I mean, I mentioned the ice cream helmets. I have, I think, like 3 different versions of Spearfish Sasquatch ice cream helmets. There are affiliated minor league teams that don't do ice cream helmets. And that just, to me, is sort of a hallmark of whether a team kind of cares about getting its brand out there. So obviously, you all care about this brand. You care about marketing the team. Clearly, it's something that you want to do outside of the 12,000 people who live in Spearfish. So where did that sort of come from for a collegiate summer level team to decide branding is going to be important to us and marketing the team to a larger audience outside of Spearfish is going to be important to us?
Well, we knew that, we couldn't survive on the support of our community only, right? So we really need to do a good job of marketing and branding to bring in the entire Black Hills region to come to games. And then really, branch out to the entire nation when it comes to our brand and our logos. And part of that is just slapping it on everything and making sure that, we're paying attention to the small details instead of just serving ice cream in a styrofoam cup, and that kind of thing, which you could do and nobody'd blink an eye at, but it's just those extra touches that go a long way. And I think it just reinforces the brand. And I'm a big branding guy, and I want to have our brand in front of everybody as much as possible. I'm a walking, talking billboard. I wear Sasquatch. stuff every day. My wife gets on me, you're all the time, like, are you going to wear that today? I'm like, well, I'll change before we go out to dinner or whatever. But our car is completely wrapped, my personal car, in Sasquatch wrap. So it branding, when you're 2.5 month season, to be relevant year round, you better be present year round, right? So that's a big part of it for us.
Sure, absolutely. You all have done some fun stuff on social media as well. I actually participated in something you did a little while ago where you just put out a call for people to send you baseball cards that you could then hand out at games. And I know that there were a lot of people on Twitter who said, "Oh yeah, we're sending something too." And then you guys sent like a nice like little thank you package. I think in fact you sent me a helmet Sunday as part of a thank you for that, because I had a bunch of baseball cards that I just they were already in a box. I just taped it up and sent it to you guys. How successful was that program of soliciting baseball cards, and were you able to give them all away to kids? Do you think you created any new baseball card collectors out there with this program?
Well, that was certainly the hope of it.
Yeah.
Was one, to either get a kid excited about it, or to reignite, that dad that used to collect, like, get him back into it. Like, that was the whole premise behind that promotion. And we certainly got a lot of cards sent to us, more than I would ever dreamed of. But we gave them all away. It was really fun. Like, there was some kids that were really jacked about it, but there was a lot of adults that were super interested too. So it was really fun. We actually had a regional sports network on the East Coast cover it.
Oh, cool.
And it was in like millions and millions of homes. Bally Sports sent out a camera crew and covered the whole event. And so that was cool and exciting. And that's not why we do it, but it's like people are paying attention to what we're doing in our small little town. And it's really neat to see. And I really have to thank the powers of Twitter for that, because that's where that all started. And it really took off on a mind of its own from one little tweet.
Well, I hope that the 1989 Von Hayes card that I was really agonizing over whether this one goes in the box or not, I hope that one found a good home, that new card collectors out there really appreciating it.
Yeah, I'm certain it did.
Well, if you could follow up on that and let me know, I would appreciate that. Actually, just check with the fans as they come back next season on who has that 1989 Von Hayes.
Got it.
All right. So obviously, you've got the 2023 season coming up. You're calling it the 5th anniversary. I know it's weird for teams that started when you all did, because you skipped the 2020 season. So you started playing in 2018, then 2019, and then 2021. So how are you calculating the 5th anniversary?
Yeah, so we view it as it's our 5th season on the field.
Yeah.
So we played in 18-19, took 20 off, played in 21-22, meaning 23 would be year 5 that we actually compete.
Who do you think would win a fight, your Sasquatch or the Eugene Emeralds Sasquatch?
I think Samson could take him. I think he's got all the metrics, the reach and the weight, and just the overall size. I think Samson could take him down.
There was clearly a decision to go like fierce Sasquatch, right? Like, he's not cartoony in any way, and it's like you think about like kid friendly and whatnot. Like, it's not that, right? Like, it's a serious sort of fierce looking Sasquatch. What do you think about that decision to do something more sort of serious and menacing rather than sort of cartoony and kid friendly, which seems to be the trend in minor league baseball?
Yeah, I think we wanted something that's somewhat intimidating. But at the same time, we knew we could have a lot of fun with it, like in how we approach things. So like, just because the logo wasn't fun or kid-like doesn't mean we couldn't gear towards kids and families, because that's what we do, is gear towards those families and with young children. And it's pretty rare for a logo to scare a kid, where our mascot sometimes, depending on the child, could be intimidated by Samson, but it's something I think was more of an intimidation, and we wanted to be taken seriously and not as something that's kind of a joke.
All right, last thing, and then I'm going to get you out of here. The Spearfish is right on the edge of the Black Hills National Forest, not far from Custer State Park. Crazy Horse is near there. Deadwood is near there. there's a lot of stuff that's sort of happening in and around that part of the state, that part of the country, a pretty distinctive part of the country too, that, people, it's hard to get to, I think, for a lot of people, especially on the coasts and whatnot. Are there things about the state or that part of the state that you think, might be something that you would celebrate, like in an alternate logo, or if you were ever to change logos? I'm not suggesting that you would, but like, what are the things about that part of the country that a baseball team might celebrate, either with a promotional night or an alternate identity, or someday a new brand?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff we could do here. There's a big gold rush here in Deadwood. We have Devil's Tower an hour away. We have Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse an hour away. And just the Black Hills in general is such a special place and unique place. It's like this little island on the prairie, we like to call it, that pops up out of nowhere. And we're semi-close to Yellowstone, and that's a big thing right now with the TV show. Kevin Costner has a lot of ties here.
Sure.
To Deadwood. He's done a lot with Dances with Wolves,
that
kind of thing. So there's a lot of rich history around Spearfish in the Black Hills, and we definitely have plans in the future to incorporate that in one-off nights, or maybe even an entire season sometime.
Well, thanks for joining me at the time of this recording, right before the holidays. It's fun to talk about this brand. It's a really fun brand. Where can people, are you on, well, obviously you're on social media. We talked about that. Where can people find you on Twitter?
But if you just search Spearfish Sasquatch, you'll find us. It's a unique name. Same with Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on all those.
Awesome. Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been fun to talk about this brand. Good luck in 2023. And I got to make it up there to actually have some ice cream in a helmet at a Sasquatch game. It's not that far to drive, so I'm gonna do my best to get there in 2023.
Yeah, definitely come up. And we don't just serve normal ice cream. We have local flavor stuff that's unique to us, and we're happy to have them as a partner. Leon's Creamery, check them out.
That is the cherry on top of that sundae right there, for absolute sure. So, Eric, thank you so much. This has been fun.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I am very happy to be joined right now by an expert on the subject at hand. I am speaking with Jeremiah Byron, who is the host of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Jeremiah, thank you for being here.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me on. How's it going, man?
I am psyched, man. I am fired up to be having this conversation right now. I'm doing real well. If you would, just tell me a little bit about what you talk about on the Bigfoot Society podcast.
Yeah, definitely. So back in early 2019, I started a podcast where I wanted to talk to people about cryptozoology subjects. Of course, most of my interviews do have to do with Bigfoot. So I talk to a lot of researchers, authors, artists. I also do talk to some, one-off, like I talked to a guy about giants, ancient giants of North America, talk about some UFO stuff. So I kind of sprinkle, off-topic stuff. There was usually Bigfoot and cryptid related interviews that I do. So.
Sure. So we're talking about the team that we're discussing on this episode is the Spearfish Sasquatch. Yeah. You use the term Bigfoot in your podcast. There are obviously other terms out there. Are these terms interchangeable, or are we talking about different creatures?
That is a good question. The way I look at it is that these are interchangeable terms. Some cultures may refer to the creature more by one word than the other. And the first time that the word Bigfoot was actually found in print was in 1958, when there was a sighting in California by Jerry Crew. They found some huge oil drums thrown all over the place out in the woods, and many tracks, things like that. And so the newspaper journalist was the first to coin the term Bigfoot. It was the first time it was in print, Andrew Gonzalez. So 1958. But they're pretty much interchangeable, though, to answer your question. Okay. So
what are some of the other ones? There's Bigfoot, there's Sasquatch.
Oh boy, Paul. Yeah. Because so the thing about Bigfoot is that It's seen in all the states except for Hawaii, right? And everyone has their interesting little regional ones. So, I mean, in Ohio, you've got the grass man. You've got in Southern Illinois, you've got the big muddy monster. You've got skookum out in the Pacific Northwest sometimes. Man, it goes all over the place. There's so many different wild man, just so many different terms. Yeah.
So, what are the consistent threads when you're talking about the actual? We'll use Bigfoot. I don't know. I'll probably use
Yeah.
Bigfoot. I'll probably use Sasquatch.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about, there's been sightings reported in 49 of the 50 United States.
Mhm.
What are the consistent threads that you have found of the descriptions?
Sure. So usually we're looking at, and there's outliers, of course, but you're looking at a really large, hairy creature, oftentimes described having reddish brown hair. Although in some parts of the U.S., such as Alabama, there's the Alabama white thing. There's also a Bigfoot that was seen in the northeast corner of Pennsylvania and Scranton area,
Okay.
where it was a white Bigfoot. But usually you're looking at a darker creature, reddish brown. Usually about 7 to 9 feet tall is where they start to come in. Although some people think that Patty was more, 6.5 foot to 7 foot by recreations that were done by people like John Green a few years after 67. They took some people out there to try to figure out how tall Patty was. There's also, you're seeing not really much of a neck, a really like the dome shaped head, a very pronounced a brow ridge, a very flat nose, almost like an ape's nose, if you could imagine that. The arms go down past the knees, so the arms are, imagine a guy in a suit would not be able to replicate these arms, how far they're going down. I mean, they're much longer uh, than a human's arms would go. Um, and of course, a very hairy creature. Yeah.
Sure.
Those are the main things that come to mind when I'm thinking about the description of the creature. That is, when it goes from sighting to sighting. There's also other similarities that are seen. Uh, uh, people will hear wood knocks. People will hear a sort of howling, howl. You may have heard the Ohio howl that was on the show Finding Bigfoot, captured by Matt Moneymaker back in the mid 90s. Um, People will have rocks thrown at them, smaller, sometimes even pine cones. Some people will even have them leave gifts for them. And the whole community is not on board with that one, but they'll leave gifts, and there'll be a gifting situation where they'll exchange things back and forth. Sometimes there's even campers that'll be out in tents, and the Bigfoot will mess with the tents. There's been people that have been messed with while they're inside the tent at night, the zippers, things like that.
Sure. I want to share a screen in case you hadn't seen this yet. This is
Yes.
This is the mascot that we're talking about here for the Spearfish Sasquatch. Pretty menacing looking character. Like I said, we're talking about Spearfish, South Dakota here.
Mhm.
There is a team called the Eugene Emeralds in
Oh,
Oregon,
yeah.
and they've got a
Totally.
Sasquatch logo as well here. So you've
Okay.
got two minor league baseball teams
Uh-oh.
who have the right. Well, I guess that's the question too, is if you're looking at these here, which one wins a fight? Is one of them sort of, I mean, obviously the Emeralds have a little more sort of cartoony logo about them, but the and the Sasquatch have a more sort of serious approach to it. Does one of them strike you as being more consistent with, the descriptions that come from the community?
So I'm gonna just love having the state of Oregon all up in arms against me. So be good, guys. But yeah, I'm gonna state the obvious that the Eugene emeralds, it's more of a cartoony feature, right? Like that, it's a great cartoon Bigfoot Sasquatch. But if you go back to the Spearfish Sasquatch, I mean, looking at that face, like I've seen a lot of like artist recreations, and there's guys out there that'll listen to witness reports and they'll sketch what they've seen, like they're actually forensic artists. And this actually comes pretty close to what I've seen a lot on different reports when there's a witness report sketch. So, I mean, hats off to Spearfish. Like, they hit it pretty close.
They did a better job on it. Okay. All right. It's interesting because there are some, if you think about it, there are some other minor league baseball teams that are founded in cryptozoology. Not too long ago, I did an episode on the Grand Junction Jackalopes. That's a new team that's coming.
Cool.
The Vermont Lake Monsters are obviously named for Lake Champlain's champ. Yeah, absolutely. Even, there was the Las Vegas 51s. I don't know if that counts as cryptozoology if you're talking about.
Well, that's a whole different.
That's a whole different thing. All right. I don't want to take it down the bad road.
I'll say personally, I don't think so, but some people are like throw everything in there, so that's whatever.
Sure.
There's no rules, right? So.
You mentioned, whether there was sort of consensus within the community around certain things. Is there any consensus within the community about whether it's appropriate to, are these teams like making light of the whole notion of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, or is it okay to have a Sasquatch as a mascot for a baseball team?
That's a really good question. So I will answer Bigfoot. No one really gets up in arms about. There are other cryptids, such as Wendigo, where there are parts of the community, cryptozoology community, where it's like, hey, we need to be careful how we approach and handle these stories because they're very closely tied to Native American tradition and culture.
Interesting. Okay.
But for some reason, Bigfoot is like, you can put it on anything and it has just exploded. And like, you go out to Oregon and you can get like Bigfoot donuts and Bigfoot socks. And I mean, I get even in Iowa, I've been all over the place. You can find Bigfoot anywhere now. So it's really a different world that we live in as opposed to pre-finding Bigfoot, 10, 15 years ago. People were not talking about their encounters because they were going to get made fun of. Now it's the cool thing to do. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter, you're the cool dude. So.
Well, I was going to ask you on a personal level, what got you into sharing those stories through a podcast?
Yeah, so I grew up watching stuff like In Search of with Leonard Nimoy with my father. Then when high school, I kind of got away from it. Then when I was in the mid-20s, I started working with a bunch of guys that were into weird stuff, and we started just talking about, cryptids and Bigfoot. We got involved with the Cryptid Festival close to us in Iowa. And then I got involved with some cryptid documentary that was filming. My buddy had me be the guy off camera that was asking questions to these guys that were being interviewed, and found I had a love for interviewing people, coupled that with my love for cryptids and weird stuff and Bigfoot. And so I was like, man, I can just start my own podcast. You don't have to ask for permission. And it kind of just snowballed into like, I've been able to talk to people that I would never have thought that I would ever be able to talk to about Bigfoot and stuff. So
I'm guessing you've heard some fascinating stories too.
There's some wild stories out there, Paul. Some big time weird stories. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Tying this back to the subject matter of Baseball by Design here, we talked about the logos a little bit. What do you think of the notion of, what are the qualities of Bigfoot or Sasquatch that would make him a good baseball player?
It's funny. Well, he's got tremendous upper body strength. So, I mean, he could take that baseball and just truck it further than you've ever seen it. He's already taken sticks and hitting them against the size of trees. And to be honest, Bigfooters usually use baseball bats to do wood knocks in the woods. So who's to say Sasquatch couldn't take a baseball bat and pretend he's doing a wood knock, but he hits that baseball? He's going to be a powerhouse when he's standing at first base. I mean, no one's going to get through Sasquatch. So you're going to try to steal first base and you're just going to get your arm ripped off.
All right. So I do want to show you one, or since we're thinking about Sasquatch in a baseball context, this is Strike, the mascot of the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. So not the blue guy here. So we can enter him into the lexicon of this whole conversation of the Spearfish Sasquatch, the Eugene Emeralds, and now Spike, the mascot from the Northwest Arkansas Naturals.
That's very interesting because there's a ton of reports that come out of that area. You have the Ouachita Mountains crossover from Northwest Arkansas into Oklahoma. And some of the most intense Bigfoot research is actually going on in that mountain range in a specific area. So that's interesting you brought that up.
All right. So, obviously I talked about the Vermont Lake monsters. We talked about some of the other cryptids out there that are represented in minor league baseball. Are there any that we haven't talked about that, could be great baseball mascots that you don't see represented?
Oh, absolutely. So I live in central Iowa, and my favorite cryptid here, besides Bigfoot, my absolute favorite cryptid regionally is the Van Meter Visitor, which is a winged cryptid with a horn on its head that shoots out light. And I think that would make a fantastic regional Iowa baseball team mascot if someone wants to go ahead and jump on that and make a Van Meter Visitor team. I'm surprised the town Van Meter hasn't jumped on that, but that's another story. So
it's just built into the name, the Van Meter Visitor. It's
that's true. It could get a little confusing, but they'll get around it.
Oh man, Jeremiah, this has been a ton of fun. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this. It really is a fascinating subject, and it's great. I love learning about these stories that are out there, and the just the whole field of cryptozoology, I think, is well represented in minor league baseball. And so there's a lot of interesting crossover there. Where can people find you and your podcast on social media?
You got it. You can go to BigfootSocietyPodcast.com. You can search for Bigfoot Society on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, if you've got a Bigfoot encounter or anything weird that's happened to you, please feel free to send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And I would love to hear your story and communicate back and forth with you. So thank you for having me on, Paul.
Jeremiah, thank you so much. I hope people do reach out to you. I want to know that there are some Baseball by Design listeners out there who have stories that they want to share with you on your podcast. So, Jeremiah, thank you so much.
You got it.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm very excited right now for a brand new segment that Dan Simon of Studio Simon suggested that we do. And so we're going to try this out. This is going to be the first installment of, I think, Dan, what are we calling this? This is trivia questions that you are bringing that are related to the subject matter of each podcast. And at the end of most of the podcasts that of the episodes of Baseball by Design that I'm doing, we're going to do a trivia question that you're going to bring to me. We were talking about whether we had a name for it or not. So I don't know if we've come up with a name. I was thinking, and you can tell me what you think of this, I was thinking Studio Simon Stumpers.
You've got my vote. I've been so busy writing and researching the trivia questions for your upcoming episodes. So I did not put my thinking cap on when it came to a name. You're a clever guy, a writer yourself, and you just you right off the cuff, you just came up with a great name for it. So Studio Simon Stumpers it is.
Studio Simon Stumpers. And so this is, normally you're a guest on the podcast when, I'm talking about a brand that you've created. So there will be times now where, if we're doing an episode on one of your brands, we'll have, the segment where you're talking about the brand itself, but then you'll also have a trivia question. This is an instance. I mean, the Spearfish Sasquatch, you didn't create this brand, but you have trivia for me about it. And so we're going to try this out. We're going to see how this works. I'm guessing that, listeners of the podcast are going to enjoy it because you have been a prolific guest out there in the podcast world. You were very recently a guest on Anna DiTomaso's Baseball Bucket List, which you and I share as one of our favorite podcasts that we listen to. And at the very end of that podcast episode, you unveiled to her that you had created a new brand for her baseball bucket list, which is, it has been hugely well received. The Kirby Bucket character that you came up with was really well received. I mean, I'll admit I was a little bit jealous that that my status as the only Dan Simon designed podcast logo out there had been circumvented, but it was very generous and kind of you to do that, and it's a terrific logo, and I've already pre-ordered my T-shirt from Anna.
Well, I'm very flattered by those very kind words. Thank you very much. It was fun. I've anthropomorphized, it seems like, virtually everything under the sun, and interestingly, not the sun itself yet. There are some sun logos, the Hagerstown Suns and
Jacksonville.
Right. But that's one I haven't done. I've done other things along those lines. Like I've anthropomorphized a cloud and a lightning bolt for the Trenton Thunder. So those are up in the sky as well, but not as high up, I guess. So
what about any cryptids? What about any mythological creatures? Like, we've been talking about Bigfoot and Sasquatch in this episode.
I've got a list in a file drawer right next to where I'm sitting of all the identities I've done, broken up into categories like fish and birds and bovines and whatever. And there is a miscellaneous category, but it's going to hold things for me to dig that out right now and look through it. There very well might be some type of mythological character in there, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. Okay. But speaking of Sasquatch, let's get right to the question.
All right, here we are. The very first Studio Simon Stumper.
Okay, here we go. Before there were the Spearfish Sasquatch and the Eugene Emeralds, another team with a Sasquatch in their branding, what team had the first professional brand identity that centered on a Sasquatch-like creature, in this case, one whose home was in wine country? Was it A, the St. Catharines Stompers, B, the Sonoma County Crushers, or C, the Napa Valley Bigfoots? Would you like me to repeat the three choices?
Yeah, let's hear the three choices again here.
Okay. A is St. Catharines Stompers.
Stompers,
B,
not Stumpers.
Right.
Okay.
This question is the stumper. One of your potential answers are the Stompers. St. Catharines Stompers, B, the Sonoma County Crushers, and C, the Napa Valley Bigfoots.
So all three of these, I mean, you can see how they would relate. So I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm going to try to suss it out here to see if I can do this. The Bigfoots is a little on the nose. The Crushers feels to me like like we're crushing grapes here. And the Stompers could also be, so all three of them could have something to do with feet crushing grapes to create wine. I think Bigfoot's is too on the nose. Crushers is a pretty good one. Stompers. I'm gonna go with the Stompers.
Okay. A, St. Catharines Stompers. Well,
A, St. Catharines Stompers. Final answer.
Okay. Now, the reason for multiple choice is even if you don't know the answer to the question, at least you've got a 1 in 3 chance. And your reasoning was good. You're correct about the Napa Valley Bigfoots being too on the nose. That one is actually not, that was not a team.
Okay.
But the other two, the St. Catharines Stompers and the Sonoma County Crushers, were both teams. And I speak in the past tense because neither one is, they were both independent minor league teams. And the correct answer is actually B, the Sonoma County Crushers, who were one of the founding members of the now defunct Independent Western Baseball League. And they had a mascot named Crusher, the Abominable Snowman. Now, get it? He's from Sonoma, which makes him a snowman.
He's the snowman. I like this a lot. I like this very much.
And in this case, he was a snowman with large feet. They were stained purple from, as you mentioned, the practice of crushing grapes with one's feet. And the team's logo featured the letters SC for Sonoma County over Crusher's large purple footprint. So they did not have Crusher in any of their logos, just his footprint, but they did have a mascot that looked very much like a Sasquatch, pretty similar to Harry of Harry and the Hendersons, and with big purple feet. The St. Catherine's Stompers, their logo did feature a person. It didn't feature a Bigfoot or Sasquatch kind of character. It was just a winemaker with big purple feet in their logo and on their cap logo, which interestingly enough also had an SC for St. Catherine's. And then there was currently, coincidentally, even though there's no longer the Sonoma County Crushers, there is currently a team, and I do not know the name of the league in which they play offhand, the Sonoma Stumpers, which doesn't have, interestingly, any depiction of anybody or anything stomping or crushing any grapes in it. Their logo is a roundel with a field that looks like a wine country, I guess, in the background. So that's the first ever Studio Simon Stumper about stompers and crushers.
I think this Studio Simon Stumpers is going to be a rich vein for minor league baseball logo trivia, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, then I'm looking forward to next time when I will see you in my Studio Simon Stumper corner.
Studio Simon Stumper corner. I like that. That's we're gonna get you a sign made up for your studios there in Louisville, Kentucky, that says Studio Simon Stumper corner. And also I think we should keep track of my record here. I guess I'm 0-1 right now in Studio Simon Stumpers.
Okay, I will keep a log.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. Have a good one. Bye.
Go! Go! Goodbye, my friend.